So we're going to turn now to a major question around what we are all witnessing, all the world a witness to, the possibility, the reality of war crimes being committed in Ukraine. The UN has received credible reports of Russian forces using cluster bombs in populated areas. But the United States is stopping short of calling that a war crime. There's all kinds of evidence. You can find it on social media, people taking pictures of the weapons that have been used in their neighborhoods, and they qualify as cluster bombs in civilian neighborhoods. But Vice President Kamala Harris, you see there, who is in Europe to bolster support for Ukraine, also stopped short of accusing Vladimir Putin of war crimes. She did, however, make it clear that the U.S. is watching.
And I'll say it again, we are clear that any intentional attack or targeting of civilians is a war crime. Period.
So, will Vladimir Putin be charged with war crimes for Russia's actions in Ukraine, however this war turns out? And if so, what consequences does that have? Could he face consequences? What does it mean? Let's bring in John Bellinger, who's a senior fellow for international and national security law at the Council on Foreign Affairs. For more, John, good to see you. You've been a student and a practitioner in this area for a long time. Scholar, I should say. Student, scholar, those are a good thing, but also practitioner. You've had to face practical realities of this law. So I want to ask you the question. So we're looking at these Russian attacks on civilian targets, without question, not just cluster bombs, major artillery firings, the bombing of the children's hospital in Mariupol. Why is the U.S. government dancing around, it sounds like, the accusations that Russia's committing war crimes in Mariupol? Is it about proof, or is it something else?
Well, we're careful about throwing around the word war crime without a showing of intent. What the U.S. government is saying is it appears that war crimes may have been committed, that Russia has indiscriminately been targeting cities and civilians and certain protected categories like hospitals and churches. But to prove a war crime, there has to be a showing not just that that the civilians have been killed or that hospitals have been hit, but that there has been either an intent to hit them. That's why you heard Vice President Harris say an intent to target civilians, or that Russia has simply been indiscriminate in its bombing, meaning it's not been discriminating between a legitimate military target and an illegitimate civilian target. So it certainly appears that war crimes may have been committed, and the prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, who has opened an investigation of the situation in Ukraine, has said that it appears that war crimes and crimes against humanity have been committed in Ukraine.
And just speaking of the chief prosecutor opening up an investigation, does that hold any weight? I mean, can that really go somewhere? What exactly would be the first step in that process?
Well, it really can. And right now, it's the main game in town. It may be ultimately the only game in town. The International Criminal Court is a court in The Hague that was set up by a treaty about 20 years ago to investigate and prosecute war crimes, genocide, crimes against humanity, and the crime of aggression. And the prosecutor in The Hague has said he's opening an investigation. Now, it will take quite a while to collect the information and the evidence. The International Criminal Court doesn't charge countries, it charges individuals. And so, just like a criminal prosecution in the United States, there will have to be sufficient evidence. There'll have to be evidence of intent or a failure to discriminate, and that could take quite a period of time. I don't think we're expecting that there would be charges probably this year, and we don't know who that might be. Would it be Putin? Would it be the defense minister? Would it be certain military commanders? It could be any of those. But candidly, this is very serious, and I think that the International Criminal Court may very well come up with charges against Russian officials, either possibly later this year or more likely sometime next year.
And John, if I could follow up on that and kind of press you on that. I covered a lot of the early war crimes trials out of the former Yugoslavia, and then some of the International Criminal Court trials, and it does take forever. That is an institution that has been, has had struggles. And I just wonder, also, having been in The Hague covering those trials, it just seemed a long way from where the victims were. And this is about accountability and justice for the victims. And I was in the court when some of these verdicts were handed down. I wonder if there are other, and it just felt very, very different. It felt remote from Sarajevo, from other places that those trials were supposed to answer the pain of. And I just wonder if there are other avenues. What about national? Could Ukraine put people on trial, as Israel did with Eichmann? What's your assessment of the impact that the International Criminal Court can really have in achieving justice in a situation like this?
Well, Terry, you make a good point. The International Criminal Court over the last 20 years has been very slow. Not all of its prosecutions have been successful. The United States, as you well know, Terry, is not a big fan of the International Criminal Court, although I suspect that the administration will support it in this instance, but it can be very slow. And I think this will be a real challenge for the court to rise to the occasion and do a good investigation. But you're right, there could be other avenues. If Ukraine survives as a country, which we certainly all hope that it will, it could conduct its own national investigations of war crimes. There's been talk recently amongst senior officials around the world, including former Prime Minister of the UK, Gordon Brown, calling for a special tribunal like the Nuremberg tribunals to be set up to investigate and prosecute Russian war crimes. Individual countries, including the United States, actually have national laws that allow them to investigate or prosecute war crimes, although I suspect most of these countries, please.
No, please conclude.
Well, most of these countries would much prefer an international criminal court to be doing the investigating and prosecuting rather than to have a Germany or a Poland or an individual country doing the investigating and prosecuting. So I think you're right. We will have to see the International Criminal Court up its game, do better than it's done in the past. What we'll see here, though, is many, many countries, I suspect the United States, Britain, Poland, others will be pouring in classified and open source information plus social media into the prosecutor. So unlike other cases that they've investigated in Africa that have been really difficult to investigate and prosecute, I think the prosecutor is going to have a wealth of information, both open source and classified, including Russian radio communications, to determine whether Russian officials and commanders did commit war crimes. So this is definitely something to watch over the next year.
Great point. And also that the Nuremberg trials, you could almost have a special trial, even where the ICC was doing it in Ukraine. The Nuremberg trials, of course, in Germany. So that the people there could get the message. John Bellinger, we thank you very much. I know we'll be hearing about this a lot in the coming months, and as you say, in years. Thanks very much for being with us.
Nice to be with you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.